Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whenever you're listening to us. This is a fantastic, brand new, freshly squeezed episode of the Freedom Mastery podcast. And as always, we try to bring you the best content, the best people you can learn from, people who can inspire you, people who are at completely different levels of their journeys. There could be people who have already made millions of pounds in property. There could be people who are already starting up in property. There can be people who are somewhere in between, somewhere in the middle. And today I've got a special guest for you, somebody who I would say is exactly somewhere in the middle, somebody who's already established in property markets, in management, somebody who was formerly working for another company in recruitment business, but somebody who always wanted to become an independent real estate investor. So please allow me to welcome Mr. Lukasz Franka into the room. Lukasz, kick it off and introduce yourself.
Thanks, Kamil, for introduction. I'm really pleased to be invited for your podcast. You already did a fantastic introduction about myself, but I'll try to keep it briefly. Like Kamil said, I come from a corporate background. I started my career back in the UK in 2016. Pretty much since I came over to the UK, I started working in sales. I had a few jobs in retail industry where I was selling furniture, carpets. Then I transitioned into field sales where I was selling for Mondelez International, well-renowned blue chip business. But I wanted to do more. I wanted to make more money. I was always driven by achievements, and I felt like my skills could be better utilized elsewhere. Hence why I ended up transitioning to recruitment. I've spent about 5 years in recruitment where I used to recruit for private equity funds across US, UK, and Europe. I did it for a few years. And then after a few years of doing that, I moved to an IT recruitment. I worked for big businesses in this field. I did quite well because I started as a junior recruitment consultant. I developed to senior consultant, and ultimately I ended up being a recruitment manager. And I had my own team, a remote team of recruiters across the UK. So I could say that I achieved pretty much everything I wanted in my corporate world. But uh, I always had the feeling that regardless how much money somebody will pay me in my full-time job, I will never feel fulfilled and I will never feel satisfied because I always had that drive to actually work for myself. And I believe that actually I could achieve it, which is why I started looking for options as to where I could actually, grow as an individual and where could I establish myself as a business owner. Hence why I started attending local property meetings, probably like yourself, Camille. Uh, when we come over to foreign country like England, we are looking for opportunities, ideas as to what can we do to improve our lives of our families. If somebody has children, lives of our children. So that was exactly the case in my scenario. Money was good in recruitment, but I wanted more. I wanted more time for myself, more freedom, more independence and more growth. Hence why I started attending property meetings around 2019, I believe. It was end of 2019. And I got really excited about the whole idea of owning a property, of actually making money within property industry, because I saw other individuals performing incredibly well in this field. So I got very excited, very inspired. And then unfortunately, COVID-19 came, of course, and my drive, my excitement somewhat got paused for about 10, 12 months because I'll be honest, I was very afraid of what the future holds, what may happen. And perhaps I should stick around for a couple of more years in my recruitment job because ultimately I could do it remotely. So I kept looking at the properties because at the time I still didn't have a residential home. But so I during the COVID I kept looking at properties. What could I potentially buy? Because somebody told me that before I start in rent to rent, because at the time I thought rent to rent could be a great option for me because I don't really have that much money. to go out there and buy and refurbish projects for, 50 or 100 grand. So I thought rent to rent could be an option for me to kickstart my um, real
Yeah.
estate career.
Hmm.
But then that person again told me that I should buy my first home as the priority. So I focused on that. I bought my first house in 2021. And
Okay.
after that, I felt like, okay, now I'm ready. Now I've got my house. Now I can find this transition from full-time job into recruitment and sorry, to property. And as we continued going to property networks, mainly across West Yorkshire, because I should mention that I'm located in Birstall, which is outskirts of Leeds. I met a landlady, experienced landlady who was looking to actually retire and exit the UK market. And we've built a very strong relationship with her, with my wife, because we kept coming to her events on a regular basis to Wakefields. We kept telling her about, our plans, what we would like to do, etc. We told her about the idea of rent to rent. And after a few meetings, once she gained trust in us, at one point, she came to us, or actually, she phoned me up the day after the event. I do remember that vividly. And she said, Lucas, I've been listening to your plans of what you're trying to achieve in the future, and perhaps we could help each other. And I said, how so? And she said, I'm looking to retire the UK market, and I've got two HMOs for sale. Is this something that might be of interest to you? Because I'm actually looking to sell it not at the top range price. I know that I could get it more for them, but I need money quick. And I was like, wow, how much would you like it for? And she gave us the price. At the time, we didn't have that kind of money yet, but we said, do you know what? Give us a few months. We will get that money and we'll buy it off you. So that prompted us actually to save as much money as we can from our work. Um, Kind of cut a little bit the standard of our lives at that time because we were so committed to actually purchase our first HMOs. And we felt that this is fantastic opportunity. So we saved the money for a few months. We came to her, listen, we've got the money, let's do it. And it was September 2022, I believe, when we became the owners of two mini HMOs. By mini HMO, I mean four-bedroom HMO, which doesn't require a license.
Got you.
So we bought two properties off her. So it was excitement, but also at the same time, we were kind of like scared, like our life will now change completely because we've got 8 tenants and they will be ringing us all the time. And like, wow, we didn't get used to it. And
Yeah.
literally a few days after, she said, do you know what? I also have contacts to a few landlords who might need service of a property management. Is this something that you might be interested in? I said like instantly to my wife, no, no way. We need to learn how to handle 8 tenants, not to mention like potential additional 50 ones. And I said, absolutely not. But my wife is like, yeah, let's do it. We will figure it out later.
You should thank her.
Yeah, I mean, when I reflect on that now, yeah, definitely. Thanks to her, actually,
Yeah.
we've got the business because I was really reluctant because I'm very I like to rethink over, the opportunity before I say yes to it. Whereas my wife is different. She first says yes, and then she lets me figure out everything later. So I end up with, heavy lifting and figuring out. But I actually like the fact that she's very like open-minded and very confident about our capabilities because without her, we wouldn't have the business. So, long
Oh,
story short, yeah, we agreed to take those contacts. We've been
amazing.
introduced to those landlords, and suddenly, out of nowhere, within literally 3 months, we've got two HMOs and a property management agency with 50 tenants on the management.
That wow, that story is like so incredible, but it proves more than anything before that property is very much like people's business, isn't it? Like it didn't happen for you just from the moment when you bought the property. It happened way before that when you started attending those networking events, you started creating those relationships, and all of a sudden the opportunity came to you out of nowhere. And I have to admit, it's impressive because you had to impress that lady who sold you those two HMOs because she kept those properties for you. Because in normal circumstances, she wouldn't just wait for anybody else. She would just probably market those properties and sell them to anybody who can pay the same price or even more. But she kept them for you, so I have to admit, you must have impressed her so much that she was willing to wait a little more. And then you bought those properties off her. So well, hats off the head, well done for that. I'm really, really impressed. And well done for following through. Well done to your wife mainly, that she was like brave and bold in order to make that decision. And from that, you really just created a business that was a great sort of beginning. And then you obviously expanded. One thing I wanted to ask you, because you've already mentioned that this is not your native language. We share the same nationality. We're not UK based natives. So tell me a bit more about what did you feel when you first came to the UK? You were doing well in the recruitment, and
Mhm.
when you had this concept and idea of starting your own business, although you're not UK native, did you have this initial kind of blockage in your mind that something can go wrong, especially that you're not UK native? What was your thinking and what were your fears before you actually started doing it?
Yeah, that's a great question, actually. I'm glad you asked that question. So, actually, as you're well aware, Camille, it's very difficult for us so-called foreigners when we first come to England, or if somebody moves to Germany or Netherlands or whatever. But yeah, it was, I'm not gonna lie, it was tough when we came over because I left behind really good life in Poland because in Poland, I didn't mention that yet, but this will give you the background as to why I was so driven to have my own business in England. In Poland, I was very successful because I was working in direct sales. We were doing, door to door. So Polish people hate it,
Hmm.
basically. But I started there as a distributor. I got promoted very quickly to assistant manager, and I became a manager. I had my own kind of franchise office after just 12 months of working the business. And I was able to build a team of 26 sales representatives. And I became rookie manager of the year in Poland. So I was extremely successful there at a young age because I was 24 at the time and I loved the business. And I thought I will work in that business for the rest of my life. But the business decided to shut down the operation in Poland because it wasn't really that profitable for them. Because although my office was making money and profit for the business, but majority of the offices were struggling. So they've made a decision to shut the business. I was devastated by it. But they said, do you know what, Lucas? You are one of our best guys. Let's move you to the UK and you can start working in the UK, but you have to start from scratch. And by starting from scratch means going out in the fields, speaking in an English language, which I didn't know at the time, or I didn't speak fluently, and try to make money off doing door to door. And it was commission-based role only.
Okay.
So I took a massive leap of faith and I said, okay, yes, let's do it.
Wow.
Because I was
That's
so
that's
in love with the
crazy.
business. Because at the time, I believed that I cannot achieve success outside of that business because the business taught me so much. I was so much in love with it. So we ended up in England, but unfortunately, I couldn't do it. I couldn't do it in English because my English was broken. Nobody wanted to buy from me. I really struggled for about 2 months. I made zero money for 2 months. We were barely surviving because we had a bit of savings from, our families, which we borrowed from them when we moved from Poland to England, but it was extremely tough because also my wife couldn't find a job for about 5 weeks. So it was really, really bad. But then luckily she found a job and I'm not gonna lie, she started providing for us in the beginning.
Wow.
Whereas I, kept trying to actually turn this around and start making some money with the business, but I just couldn't, which is why, I parted ways with the business and I found my first job. It was for a brief period. I worked in a factory, but then I was able to quickly transition to sales because I always knew that if I want to achieve something in England, I need to expose myself to English. I need to surround myself with English people. I need to immerse myself into this language. So I've decided to take the hard route and with my broken English, go into retail sales where I was selling furniture for Oak Furniture Land. But like I said, my English was broken. I was mainly selling on attitude, to be fair, Camille, because my English was so bad at the time that sometimes people couldn't really understand what I'm saying.
Mhm.
I do remember vividly one situation where a middle-aged woman came to the shop and she wanted to buy particular furniture. And I was still new, I didn't know where it is. She came to me and she said, "Oh, excuse me, could you please service? I'm looking for this particular furniture." And I stuttered. And I was mumbling, trying to say something in English, and she said, "He's not English. Let's not waste our time. Let's go."
Oh my.
And that was like, wow, this is one of these moments where you feel like nothing
Yeah.
in the foreign country.
Hmm. To be honest with you, that is a very strong and powerful emotion to experience, in my opinion. It did happen to me several times as well at the beginning. Maybe not in such a painful way, but people made me feel that, I'm not a native speaker, therefore I'm almost like, it's worthless spending time with me because I'm not speaking so well. And when I first came to the UK, I thought my English is pretty good because I was actually invited by an English person to the UK, and I thought it would be okay, but then the reality verified me very, very quickly, and I knew there is a lot more learning that I have to do in order to become a fluent English speaker. So I completely understand where you're coming from. But what happened then? Because obviously a lot of people would just break down at that point, but obviously your English is like perfect right now. So what happened? What drove you to break through those limiting beliefs, and how did you develop so well?
I think it's just based on my desire to actually become someone in life. And
Hmm.
I was, at the time, I said to myself, I'm not going to give up on my dreams. I'm not going to let my wife down, and I'm not going to let myself down because I know what I left in Poland, and I didn't want to go back to Poland after a few months with debts and admit that I failed. So I said to myself, okay, enough is enough. So I need to start actually uh, seriously learning the language. So apart from actually working in this job at Oak Furniture Land, but by the way, I'm super grateful that they hired me because that was a fantastic opportunity for me actually to learn the basic business language, the language of sales, uh, basic customer service in England, how to actually interact with natives. But after work, I started watching videos and podcasts, which were business oriented only,
Okay.
because I needed to learn English as fast as possible to A, not be sacked from my previous job in England, and B, to actually accomplish something in England long term. So I came across I'm sure you know him, Grant Cardone
Of
on
course.
YouTube. Yeah, real estate mogul from the US. Fantastic guy, in my opinion, although for some it may sound as very controversial, but actually, um, in my view, he's a fantastic person. And hats down to what he achieved. So I started every day watching for hours his videos on YouTube about real estate, about sales. I was, writing down the words, practicing them, etc., etc. And I was also reading books, sales books, but in English. I never read a book in Polish since I moved to the UK. And I
Wow.
also logged into, I downloaded the app called, um, I forgot the name of the app, but Amazon has an app where you can actually listen to the book and read at the same time. Because I
Audible?
found out from somebody that actually, when you read the book and when you listen to the book as well, your mind makes a connection and it will enable you actually to better remember the word, how it's written, and how it should be pronounced.
Amazing.
So
Wow.
this is how I kept reading books and developing my vocabulary. And lastly, to finish this topic, for the first 2 years, I believe, we had zero Polish friends, absolutely none. We only, communicated in English with English people and our peers from work in English all the time. It was tough. It was painful. They were making fun of us. I'm not gonna lie, but long term, it was worth it.
Wow. So you've done probably everything completely different to what a typical Polish person arriving to the UK would do. Because we tend to sort of spend more time with Polish natives because this is our common culture, common language, and we just feel naturally more comfortable. But from day one, it sounds like you wanted to be outside of your comfort zone and you were 100% aware that this is the only way to grow fast, and you've applied yourself into this difficult, challenging environment in order to outgrow yourself. So massive well done, because I would say most people would struggle to make that step, and most people would just probably take it slowly, step by step. But it sounds like you threw yourself in at the deep end, and for that, massive respect. And
Thank you.
now I know even more why you are where you are right now, because obviously success leaves clues, and there is always a reason for where we are today. Obviously, you made some choices, you made some decisions. It was tough. You went through some really challenging moments in the UK at the beginning. You broke through them. What was the key element of your mindset? Why you didn't give up? Because you clearly went through some challenging moments. It was tough. You admitted, which I appreciate that very much, that for the time period, your missus was just providing for you as well. So it's very challenging to admit, yet you do it. So you must be very brave as well. What caused you still sort of moving forward, although it was so challenging for you? Hey there, I hope you're enjoying the episode right now. If you're anything like me, you're definitely not a spectator. You want to know what's next, what's the next move. And the next logical move for you is to send me a text on my private number. It's 075 22 571 026. That's 075 22 571 026. With your permission, my aim will be to understand your plans and goals, and then to identify actions that will take you from where you are right now to your point of destinations. This will truly help you to gain unfair advantage in your rent-to-rent business. Now, let's get back to the video.
I think, that experience at Credico back in Poland in direct sales showed me that actually, if I'm focused, committed, and willing to apply the advice that is given to me by my more experienced colleagues, I can actually achieve great things.
Amazing.
So since that moment on, I believed in myself. I believe that I'm capable of becoming a successful guy, a successful entrepreneur, business owner, etc. So that thought kept me going, that I need to recreate what I had then, and I'm confident that I can do it in a foreign country. That was one thing. The second thing was self-development books. I was reading a lot. I'm not sure if you can see it, but basically I've got hundreds of books behind me, which I've read, which enabled me to develop my language, but also they actually reprogrammed my mindset from somebody who may think that, oh, I'm not going to achieve anything in life, I will be a failure, to somebody actually who believes in himself and knows that actually there is a pathway to success. You just have to apply the rules written either in the books or advice given to you by somebody who's more experienced than you. And there's no point to create your own path if the path has already been laid down. This is what I believe in. And I just followed in the footsteps of people that I got inspired by, either in property or previously from the books, especially in terms of my mindset.
Wow. I think it does come down to your self-belief. I think what makes or breaks every single entrepreneur is actually, their limiting beliefs, and whether people can break through them in order to become more and become something greater and bigger, because we have to outgrow ourselves in order to take the next step. You clearly have done that very, very well for yourself. So massive respect for that. Well done.
Thank you.
Now let's talk about something a little bit more of your own life, of your like property manager's life. You manage properties, so you must have come across some, let's call it controversial or funny situations. What would you say was the funniest situation that you came across in your entrepreneurial life so far?
God, there are many actually. Because
Okay.
it would be, I think, worth mentioning that since we took on these properties initially, now we have grown to 120 tenants under management across 35 properties right now, if I remember correctly. So with
Amazing.
that volume of tenants, there's loads of stories. I could talk, for hours about it, but
You can choose just the best one in your opinion.
yeah, maybe I'll pick scary ones and funny ones as well.
Okay.
So I'll start with the scary ones. Actually, one of the scariest ones started in the very beginning, actually. Do you remember when I told you about these two HMOs that we purchased? And
Yep.
these were our first, um, sorry, investment properties.
Yeah.
Actually, one of the properties was occupied. We didn't know that at the time of the purchase by former criminals.
Okay.
Yeah, we just turned out later that one of the tenants spent in prison 8 years, and the other one also been in prison, but for a brief period of time. When we purchased the property, it was 4 beds, but 2 rooms were empty. And I don't really know if the landlady knew or she didn't. Hard for me to say. But basically, these guys were causing troubles at the property all the time. And that's the reason why property 2 rooms were vacant, or there was always another room in that property that was vacant. And the reason being for that is other tenants just couldn't actually withstand living with that individual who was in prison. So when we took on the property, we were, all excited. Yeah, happy days. Now we are landlords. We are somebody now. And just after, a couple of weeks of interacting with these tenants, we've realized that, okay, we've got a bit of a problem here because actually they were kind of like controlling the property. And with us being newbies, they were not really listening to us. And they were kind of like telling us when they will pay the rent, when they will not pay the rent, and what are the rules of the property and what sort of tenants we can bring to the property. I was like, wow. I was really like, on one side, I was frustrated. On the other side, I felt like helpless because it's a new situation to me and I don't really know what to do. Because at that time, I didn't even know how to evict the tenant.
Of course.
And fast forward, 2 months after, things escalated at the property because they started becoming more aggressive. Every tenant we brought into the property moved out after a couple of weeks. And at one time, there was a night where, believe it or not, that guy got drunk and he wanted to break into other tenant room and he wanted to stab him.
My gosh, really?
And
Wow.
the tenant was extremely terrified and he didn't tell us that for like 2 or 3 weeks because he was so terrified that if he were to tell us, it will backfire at him. So we found out only a few weeks after. And what happened was we had a conversation with that tenant, like, listen, you cannot behave like this. You have to go. And he refused to do it. And what he did, he invited over some mates for a party. And that party turned out to actually be a bloodbath because what happened was there was like 5 or 6 guys entered into our property. We had a camera in the kitchen because, as you know, in the shared areas in an HMO, you can have a camera. They turned off the camera and they beat our tenants, also the guy who was in prison, and they destroyed some parts of the property during the process. And after the whole incident, that tenant phoned us up and said, "Oh, you sent some thugs on me, and because of you now, I've got bruises, etc." And they were really beaten up, like seriously, big time. And I said, "What are you talking about? Are you insane, man?" And he was accusing us because he had something actually with his head. And I said, "Listen, enough is enough." Because I was able to actually learn by that time how to evict tenants. I'm serving you Section 21 eviction notice, and I want you to be gone by Christmas, and he will be homeless by Christmas. And then he kicked off like crazy. He was recording hours and hours of abuse and threats through the camera. I'm not sure why he did it because actually he incriminated himself, but he was recording it to the camera. He was spitting on the camera, threatening me, threatening my wife. 600 phone calls, 600 missed phone calls from him every day that he will come and get us, kill us, etc. I couldn't sleep for a few nights because we received phone calls like 3 a.m., 2 a.m. That was insane, man. And that was really scary, especially with us being so new to the HMO and property
Business,
in
yeah.
general. And there was a point where I was like, maybe we should just give up. But then we had a conversation. We're like, listen, let's think logically. It's just one tenant. Let's try to get rid of him and see what happens. Once we served him Section 21 eviction notice, he was very scared that he will end up being homeless for Christmas. So thanks to God, he agreed to sign a voluntary surrender form
Hmm.
2 weeks after the incident. So he was actually gone, I think, 3 weeks after. So that nightmare was over 3 months after we actually took on the property. But the first 3 months were extremely stressful.
Yeah, I can
And for
imagine.
some people, might be so stressful that they could have given up.
Mm,
But we kept going.
that's incredible. Okay, so that was the very challenging story, and that I have to admit, it's a really challenging story, like really scary. Well done that you've handled it, and it's a pity that it happened for you, to you like at the beginning of your journey, because if that happened to you now,
Sorry,
you
it's
would
just my
have
wife
all
in the
the
background.
means. Hello.
I'm going now. I'm taking the dogs.
You would have all the means and power in order to serve the right section, obviously, section 8 for abuse or whatever. But yeah, you've still managed to get through this. Tell me a bit more about like what was the funny situation on the flip side.
I mean, some of the funny stories were like, for example, one guy calls me up around maybe not midnight, but I think like 10 p.m. He said, listen, somebody stole my chicken from the fridge. I think theft is going on at the property. Could you please look at the CCTV over the past week and identify the thief? I'm like, are you being serious? You want me to go through a week worth of recording because somebody nicked your chicken? I mean, like, come on, man, you're a grown up man, and he was 45. But I mean, we get calls like this, maybe not now, but at the beginning, every now and again. Then another one, funny although quite controversial for some listeners. We received a complaint that in a 12-bed HMO, somebody was just literally having sex in the shared shower during the day, and everyone could hear it, and we had to actually intervene.
Wow. Well, it's actually better during the day rather than during the night because people couldn't sleep.
Yeah, it's just that they locked themselves, and people couldn't use the shower, and they
Wow.
they listened to it. They could hear it. So that was funny one. Another one was we. I've told you that before we went live. We are still managing one of the four-bedroom HMOs in Wakefield, and one room was empty. It's a very small, almost like a tiny box room, but still meets the minimum requirements
Yeah.
of the room size. And we were meant to rent this room out to a male, like, middle-aged guy in mid-40s, etc. And I've never been to the property before. I entered the room, I opened the room, and surprise, surprise, there was a Hello Kitty mattress laying on this single bed frame, which was completely destroyed, and there were bricks underneath the bed frame to keep it firm because the bed was so broken that you should replace the entire bed frame, not to mention the like Hello Kitty mattress for kids from Marketplace that shouldn't be even there, or at least there should have been like a mattress protector put on it so that the guy who is about to move in shouldn't see it. And I was like baffled, like, what am I supposed to do now? He's coming in like 20 minutes. There's a destroyed bed frame. You've got bricks underneath it. You've got Hello Kitty mattress. So what we had to do, we just had to make a quick phone call to the landlord. Listen, we need to quickly get a new mattress or at least mattress protector, and we need to quickly replace that bed frame because the minute that tenant walks into that room, he will walk away because this is extremely unprofessional, especially in the 21st century where the bricks are supporting the bed frame to not fall apart.
Oh, wow. I mean, I never would even imagine in the darkest dreams that, yes, the bricks can actually support more than just a house. You know, you can just really use the bricks to support the bed frame. So, well done for creativity. You have to give it to them that they were very creative to get it done like that. But I suppose you managed. You got that replaced and you got the tenant okay. So there's some really funny stories. And the reason I mentioned that because obviously you got quite high volume of properties. You're managing them. So I knew there's going to be some great stories, and absolutely, it just made me laugh, and hopefully, it's going to make laugh a lot of our listeners as well. So amazing.
Yeah, I mean the story goes on. Like maybe just to finalize one funny story as well, alcohol related. Um, we had the it was actually a lesson as well. This could be also a lesson because I've mixed up tenants at one of the properties. I had mid 40s, mid 50s working professionals, which were Polish, and I moved in a young couple from Africa into the property, and I thought, yeah, everything's going to work out, it's going to be fine, etc. And but again, it was beginning of my career as a estate agent and property manager. And what happened was the youngsters they threw a party. And remember, it's a shared house, so you shouldn't be really doing this kind of stuff when you are renting just a room. And they invited loads of friends. We received a phone call around midnight that there's a wild party going on at the house. And what they did, it actually got into the property through the kitchen window
Okay.
because other doors were locked. So they got into the property through the kitchen window. Don't know why, but they ended up actually drinking all the alcohol from other tenants from the fridge, like whiskeys, vodkas, you name it. And when other tenants found out about it, they tried to break into the room of these youngsters, and they were so terrified that they stayed in the room for about 2 days without going out. And once they realized that there's nobody at the house, I saw it on my CCTV camera, they just literally stormed out of the room, and they again, for some odd reason, got out through the kitchen window, and they just ran off the property and they abandoned the place. So this is one of the other stories as well that I wanted to share.
Okay, that is interesting. Like this one may be well, it's a little bit more dramatic, I would say as well, because for somebody it could have been like a terrifying experience. But yeah, to just completely run off the property and abandon it in such a way, okay, that is quite funny. Okay, so we had some stories. That's great. So tell me what's next for you? Like what are your plans? Where is your mindset right now? Are you looking to growing? Are you looking to just stay where you are, and improve your management profile? What is it that's in the books for you?
Yeah, great question again. So, like I said, at the minute we are in a place where a year ago I was able to quit my job. My wife quit the job right off the bat when we took on the first properties. We both full time into the property. Income from the business enables us actually to make more money than we were making in our full-time jobs, which is great. Happy days. We also have investment properties for at the minute, but the plans for us is to at least double the business over the next year and a half. So right now it's 120 tenants. We've been doing this for just over 2 years, but we are always hungry. Probably, if you are a driven individual like yourself, Kamil, or one of our listeners, or all of our listeners, you always strive for more.
Mm.
So for us, the goal right now is to get to minimum 200 tenants under management, 200, 250. And we believe that at this level, we would be in a position where the cash flow is so good that it can actually fund our desired lifestyle, so to speak. We would then be able to actually outsource so low income activities, income tasks within the business, because the cash flow will enable us to hire somebody for doing the viewings, inspections, tenant move-ins. Right now we have a VA. She does the admin work, but we would like to expand her role a little bit. So I guess I would say in the next year and a half would be to double the business, but also outsource the task within the business so that I can focus more on bringing new landlords in, because I'm still wasting too much of my precious time on mundane day-to-day, like answering the phone, vetting tenants, doing the viewings, all that stuff. I need to outsource it because this is holding me back. Whereas my wife is mainly hands-on on the social media side. She's great with social media, etc. But this is the plan. And also we would like to expand our services to finding properties for other landlords. So property sourcing, because we are planning to buy also a few buy-to-let properties in 2025 for ourselves as well. So
Amazing.
once we get really good at it, it would be a natural progression for us to also offer this service to other clients. Because if I'm locally searching for the property, if I know the agents, the area, etc., I may as well offer property sourcing service for some people who are not based here, or maybe they don't really have time to go out there and find properties themselves.
Wow, that's amazing. So I just want to say on top of what you said, and I always repeat that when you find your first step into the property world, whether that's going to be through deal sourcing, whether that's going to be through rent to rent, or maybe any other strategy, there will always be more opportunities later on. Even on Saturday, I did a masterclass, and in that masterclass, I was showing people how rent to rent can lead to lease option agreements, even flips and assisted sales, which are just like a next step, next level. But once you get your foot in a door, it creates so many more opportunities for you, and you're a prime example of that because you said it. You want to expand your business, but you're also going to source properties. You're going into buying more buy-to-let properties, eventually creating the lifestyle that you want for you and your family. And that's all what it's all about: creating the lifestyle, create the experience, create the life of fulfillment and growth. And that's where I
Exactly.
would like to sort of wrap it all up, because I would love to have our lovely listeners left in a mind frame that no matter what we do, we should be living to experience and live the life full of joy and fulfillment. One final thing to you, Łukasz. Could you tell us, like, if somebody wanted to get in touch with you, if somebody wanted to ask about your services, what you do, maybe about your management in your local lease, right?
Mhm.
How can people get in touch with you?
Sure. I think now it'll be worth to mention what areas are we covering. So perhaps this may actually attract broader audience. So as I've told you before, and when I introduced myself, we do property management. We specialize in HMO, but we also do single lets. And quite recently, we also started buying and doing rent-to-rent deals as well. So we took on rent-to-rents as well because they can be fantastic source of cash flow as well. Even greater, as you know, than just property management. We are operating in Leeds, Wakefield, Castleford, Normanton, Sheffield, Huddersfield, a bit of Barnsley, and Doncaster as well. But I would say that our primary focus would be around Leeds, Huddersfield, Castleford, Wakefield, Normanton area, although we do tend to travel to other places, which I mentioned across Yorkshire as well. The best way to get in touch with me would be ideally via my website or by email. Our business is called Franka and Partners Properties Limited, and my best email address is info@frankaandpartners.co.uk. You can hit me up on Facebook. You can find me there by Lukasz Franka or Franka Properties. Same with Instagram as well. So these would be the best means to get in touch with me. I would say from my experience, Facebook works best. So please connect with me, get in touch, or just drop me an email, and I would be more than happy to have a chat to see if I can help.
That's amazing. Amazing story. Amazing, great growing story from somebody who came to the UK with having language barriers, with somebody who really struggled at some point, but still broke through, always kept on having their dreams and their desires on top of everything else. That allowed them to break through. And today, Łukasz is in a completely different place on his best way to achieve his goals. And still outgrowing yourself, although you grew so much, you're always looking to do some more. I think your mindset is just so good, and it is so healthy to stay around you, because I simply couldn't just skip your profile when I was looking at you securing deal after deal after deal and getting those landlords on your books, and I was like, this guy's doing phenomenal, let's reach out to him. So I'm glad that you were the guest for the podcast today. I hope it will inspire a lot of our listeners, and I'm looking forward to meet you in real life as well.
Thank you so much for having me, Kamil. It was an absolute pleasure. I appreciate
Take
your
care
time.
then, Lukasz. Thank you very much. Take care.
Thanks. Bye-bye.